starting our masterclass, tafadhali. If you're seated at the back, you can come to the front. If you're presenting, make sure that you're on these seats over here. If you're part of the panel for the discussion, also be on this seat. Hawajakula nyama.
Hawajakula?
Nani hajakula nyama hapa?
Nani hajakula?
Huyo 1, 2, 3, 4. Mkule nyama after this. Sawa? Make sure mmekula nyama.
So at this particular point, I want to introduce our facilitator for this particular moment. We're going to be talking about organic beef and the extensive secondary beef production through grazing. How do we do this? I am joined by Giles John, a rancher and rangeland resource expert. Tumpigie mkono, tumpigie makofi tafadhali akikuja. Karibu sana. Welcome.
You might be wondering what a Mzungu is doing up here, but actually I'm a Kenyan, born here and brought up on a cattle farm all my life. And I've worked in Laikipia now 45 years, cattle, beef business. My father started me off on the home farm with cattle, and from there I went to college in the UK, came back, and I've been in Laikipia ever since. And ranching in Laikipia is extensive grazing with large herds, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 head of cattle, and that's what I've been doing since. And through that time, we learned a lot of tricks of the trade. Our business is to produce beef at the end of the day, and as cheaply as possible. And what I'm going to try and do here today is to pass that knowledge that I've gained over those years and to prove that producing beef off grass is possible. And Kenya is a wonderful place to do that. Things have changed in the long time that I've been raising cattle on grass, and this is what I want to put across today, is how those changes have come about and how we as Kenyans, whether we're pastoralists in the north or smallholders in the high country, we can change our way of grazing cattle to benefit all of us. We need to find ways of improving our management to produce those cattle. So that's my story. That's why I'm here. I think I've had a lot of experience that I can pass on, and I'm hoping to get a lot of interaction afterwards, questions that we can answer you, and so on. So meanwhile, we'll go through what I have on the slides. I'd like you all to reflect on this statement. I'll give you half a minute to read it and reflect on it. What I'm saying, in many parts of the world they grow maize to feed to cattle to fatten. Maize should be used for human consumption. Cattle eat grass, and this is what we should be doing here. So while we're on this, whether you're in the dry northeastern territory or Laikipia or the highlands, grazing can be done much the same way. I was brought up on the ranches in Laikipia and was told we should never stock more than 10 animals per acre. That is the carrying capacity for Laikipia and its rainfall, much the same in the Rift Valley and so on. And as you go north to the drier areas, it goes even more, 15, 20 acres per animal. That's how we were raised in the ranching industry. I want to prove now that with new methods coming in, we can do much better than that. And it's purely a management tool, not spending lots of money on infrastructure or anything. It's as simple grazing management that can improve it. A lot of people, you hear climate change, you hear droughts, and so on. But to me, it's grazing management that has got to this. Good grasses like to be grazed, but when you graze them to a certain point, they need to rest. They need to recover and grow again. What happens in our pastoral communities in the north and so on, grass does not get a chance to rest. It rains, they grow, they get eaten, and they get eaten until they disappear. And one ends up with bare ground, maybe a few shrubs in between, but there's no grass here. Why is that? Because the cattle have eaten them at the wrong time when they're trying to grow, and basically the roots have died and the grasses have disappeared. The worst thing about this is when it does rain, all the water runs to the bottom of the valley, so nothing grows. We lose any rain that we get, we lose it all. And it's only when you have a cover of grass and well-managed area is the rainfall soaked up in the ground. Retention, moisture retention. In these situations there's no retention, it's all run down to the valley. And people blame drought, but it's not. You don't need much rain when you've got a good cover already in situ. So unfortunately, a lot of our country is like this. And I know through proper grazing management, we can change this around. And it's just how we go about it as Kenyans, as government, as communities. How do we improve our grazing management so that we turn these areas around into grasslands? They used to be grasslands, and we need to get back to that. And it'll take a lot of interaction between all of us and the communities to achieve that. That's one example. We move now to completely the opposite. In the past, the 10 acres to one beast meant if you had 10,000 acres, you could have 1,000 animals in that area for the whole year. And traditionally, we would bunch them in herds of 100, and with herders, graze them out from the boma. They have to be boma at night because of wildlife will stop them. And they would graze out. The problem with that grazing system is the cattle become selective because they're grazing over a big area. They select the best grasses, and they'll continue with that, and they leave the less palatable grasses. What happens with the next range? The unpalatable grasses tend to prosper because they've been left alone. And so over the years, many years of ranching in that method, we have not really improved our carrying capacity on the ranches, simply because we're not managing the grazing tight enough. The cattle have been able to select. The cattle have only to touch it once and they know not to go close to that wire again. And you can control them very easily in tight bunches. So what you see here on the left-hand side is the last grazing. Depending on how many cattle you've got and how you bunch them, this could probably move every 2 hours or so on. So maybe 1,000 cattle were in this patch for 2 hours. And what that has done, it hasn't released the grass completely. There's still stems there, there's still grass there, there's still a cover on the ground. You don't see any bare ground. And you see a lot of manure put down. Because of that intensity of grazing, a lot of manure and urine has gone into that soil. What they tell us is, even though your grazing is very intensive, you should never let the cattle graze down to the ground. Always leave 6 inches of grass. And that will ensure fast regrowth. so that in your rotation system you can come back to that area maybe in 3 months and have enough grass to graze. It's been fertilized by your animals, and therefore it'll be richer. All the unpalatable plants have also been grazed, which means the palatable ones will be stronger and they will eventually take over. And the more you rotate, the richer your pasture gets. And as a result, your carrying capacity can increase. People say, well, that all depends on the rain. Yes, but you don't need so much rain. We've got to mitigate, maybe we're going to get less rain, or it's more unreliable, there'll be longer dry periods. When you have pasture like this, every drop of rainfall is conserved. Nothing runs. So you don't need a lot, because grasses can survive on quite a little. And we're not losing it like in the dry lands. So you can take advantage. Where places used to get 600 millimeters of rain, maybe they're getting 400 now. But it's plenty for your grazing, because everything's going in. And you've got your fertilizer from your animals. So you're just creating richer pasture every time you go by. So ranchers are doing this in what we call mob grazing. You'll see 1,000 animals in basically 2 acres at a time. They don't have a chance to select grass, they eat everything that's there. And yes, they take a little bit of time to adapt to that situation, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they get used to it. And quite a few ranchers are doing this now, and it just means that they have realized that whereby they had 10 acres for each animal, they can triple their numbers easily by doing this method on the same piece of land, because this grass will have time to rest as the cattle move on, and it'll grow because the moisture is retained, the fertilizer is in there, and so you can come back again much quicker than you would normally. Now this can be done not only on big spaces, it can be done on smallholders farms who are fenced off, 50 acres, 100 acres fenced off. You can do the same method, and we call that strip grazing. This is a hind quarter of a grass-fed Boran steer, purely grass-fed, of the highest quality. White, even fat cover. This is what the consumers, the butchers, the consumers are looking for in quality beef. And you can get it from grazing. And that's what I try to pass on. 40 years of experience of not grazing 100% the right way. We've learned that there are better ways for increasing productivity, and Kenya should be adopting this to improve. We need more beef in this country. I think I can stop there, and then we'll be hopefully getting questions and be able to answer more.
Thank you very much. Ibrahim, if you can help us get questions, we'll have him answer all the questions. Allow me to invite Mr. Wario so that he can lead in this panel discussion. As Mr. Wario is making his way here, if you're one of the panelists, kindly make your way as he introduces you. Mr. Wario.
Let me also invite Dr. Richard Chu from National Livestock Development and Promotion Services to the panel.
As agreed, we'll have a panel discussion for 30 minutes and then we'll have few minutes for questions. Thank you. Dr. Rio, you can take it off.
Thank you very much, Giles. You spoke passionately about this new approach of grazing. First question is directed to you. What is the difference between the new model or the approach to grazing vis-a-vis the conventional approach?
Okay, I hope I tried to explain that, but it's good to go over that again. Traditionally, even on the ranches or even going back to smallholders with 100 acres in a fence. Traditionally they push 20, 30 animals into that small area paddock, leave them there all day, and pick them up maybe for the night and put them in a banner. Now what those cattle are doing in that 100-acre area are just choosing the best plants and leaving alone the not so palatable plants. And slowly, your 100 acres will deteriorate, will become less and less palatable, less and less productive, and you won't be able to increase your stocking rate. So whether that's small area or big ranches, it comes to the same thing. We want to stop that cow selecting the best grasses. We want them to either eat or trample. What they don't eat, they're trampling with their hooves. And therefore that encourages your good grasses to regrow better. That's the encouragement. And what I should have mentioned before is that trampling effect of cattle hooves on the ground breaks up the crust on the top, and that is what allows the retention of rainfall. All the rain you get is retained because of the action of the hooves in that small area. So those are the advantages over the old traditional methods.
I think, guys, Dr. Richard, you're quite passionate about rangeland restoration, and you've seen the status of our rangeland currently. Do you think this approach might provide an answer in terms of rehabilitating and restoring the rangeland in northern part of the country?
Thank you, Ariu, and thank you for having this discussion. For fear of having to eliminate the discussions, but these are topics which are very close to my heart. For one, I'm quite happy to see this concept being applied in Kenya today. I think the first person who piloted and demonstrated it works is Alan Safari, he is a Zimbabwean conservationist, and he promoted the concept. I can approve it works. Apart from being a CEO of the National Livestock Development and Promotion Services, I'm also a livestock farmer in my own right. And I'm also applying this concept, but slight with this, some slight tweaks. Basically, I don't have a big land like you have. I have about close to 300 acres. And what I've done is I've paddocked it, and among the paddocks, there is 50-acre paddock which I've reserved for purely pasture production. And the capacity of that farm, the much it can accommodate, practically now, using the natural carrying capacity, is only 50 heads of cattle. But due to that paddocking and a mixture of that paddocking and rotational grazing plus this pasture land, I've now improved the capacity of that land to accommodate up to 1,000 animals. That giving that background is personal information, but it's important to share here because it has a lot of bearing on what are the possibilities we have there in our rangelands. Our rangeland and our pastoralists are not static. They are evolving. Our pastoralists are also evolving. They are also adapting to the new challenges. And in the process, what traditionally I've always done by moving the animal from one point to another, we feel a time has come when we could tweak it a little bit to face the realities. And the reality is, we have these rangelands which over time have not been handled the right way in terms of management. It's largely communal grazing systems. In the process, and according to documented science evidence, the communal land grazing systems, the animal, if they are lucky, the maximum they can extract from the grazing system, communal grazing systems, is up to 50%. There are others who are saying they only get 30%. The rest is wasted. But when you apply the rotational grazing system like what my elder brother is trying to do here, or what I'm also trying to do elsewhere, you increase that the level of utilization of the available fodder to almost over 90%. In the process, as this animal is extracting the 90% of that fodder, it's also desiccating there, and through trampling, it's also loosening the soil, as he's explaining. So basically, yes, this is an avenue we need to start exploring as a country. How do we manage our wetlands going forward? And I'm quite encouraged by what the governor of Kajiado said in the opening day yesterday, that in Kajiado is implementing a program called modulated grazing system. Basically what they are doing is, I'm not speaking for them, but I imagine what they are trying to do is to tweak the traditional pastoralism systems with the evolving realities that the population is growing, this land is shrinking, but these people are pastoralists, and somehow they have to make maximum use of their land. So how do you do it? I think this is a practical situation which we could explore seriously. Thank you.
Thanks, Secretary. Just back to you. You mentioned that Australia is doing this kind of grazing, and you had indicated that they are quite successful. What are the two things that we can learn from Australia if we want to replicate this kind of grazing in Kenya?
Basically, Australia have just proved that over the years they've increased their carrying capacity on the bits of land that have utilized these methods. As simple as that. They have in Australia you have tend to have a short rain season and a very long dry season. Beef production is all about number kilos of beef produced per acre. Really, that's the way one should look at it economically. And the more kilos of beef you can produce per acre, the more profitable the business is. And this is one way of making your business more profitable.
Thanks, Des. Daktari, Australia is not quite different from Kenya. In fact, we may be receiving more rains than Australia, even in our northern part of the country. And one of the key features of our pastoralism is the component of mobility, moving from one area to another. If you were to adopt this approach, what do you think pastoralists have to do in order to make it more effective based on their context?
Thank you. I think we just start from what I know, and after working the pastoralists for quite some time now, the most impactful processes are where you start from what I know, then you build them from there. We know they move from one point to another, adapting to the evolving grazing scenarios in terms of the issues of the availability of water and water. So now, the way I see it is, and in the early 70s and early 80s, there was this concept of block grazing schemes. And the whole concept of the block grazing schemes was actually tailored toward making a similar or mimicking what my friend here has just presented. So we just need to go back and remind these pastoralists what they were doing those years, that instead of moving freely now, deliberately they should move in a structured way. We are not stopping their movement, but what we are saying is, please now move in a structured way, because the realities happening now are such that if you move the way you have always moved, this land will not sustain these animals. And we will keep on getting the illusion that we have more animals in the country than the land can hold, which is not true. It's only the land just been mismanaged, and we have to put efforts on reclaiming this land. And practically in my small farm, sure, it's very easy, it's very practical to reclaim. I went to a gully, which actually the owner was willing to give me that gully free. But because I knew I'll reclaim it, I tried to pay something small so that later he doesn't come and claim it back. Now, you compare those pictures I took about 5 years ago and today, you see a totally different world. And these things can be replicated everywhere. And it's good you bring in the aspect of the rainfall quantities of Australia and northern Kenya. Sincerely, with the right management, land management systems, there's no part in northern Kenya which cannot sustain adequate animals to sustain the lives of those people. There isn't any. So it's all about land management, and we just need to go back on where we lost the track and try to correct it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Judge. You had indicated that in the conventional feedlot system, an animal is supposed to gain an average daily weight of 0.8 kg to 1.4 or 1.5. That is within an enclosure or within a feedlot. So you're saying even with this kind of grazing, you're still able to match what you'll be able to get from a feedlot. So the question is, what do you have to do to make sure that if you want to fatten cow and you're thinking of perhaps feedlot, and with this new approach, what do you have to do to ensure that you're able to attain that daily average gain of weight?
Yeah, good question, Abdi. When you're grazing cattle on pasture, remember that it's costing you very little, maybe the establishment of that pasture. And if you graze it properly, it'll grow again, and you've got several grazing cycles. You just got to compare that with what it's costing you in the feedlot to gain 1 kilo. And I think you'll see there's a huge difference. So don't expect to get 1.4 gain by grazing sorghum necessarily, but you'll definitely get your 1.1 kilo, 1.2 kilos. And you compare the cost of producing 1.4 in a feedlot and 1 kilo grazing, it's massive. It's a huge difference, and your margins are much bigger. If you're out to make profits, you'll see it much easier. So that's really what one should do, is compare the cost of feedlotting to establishing good fodder. And there are plenty of fodders available now. They're being developed in South Africa. The seeds are coming up to Kenya now and are available. Lots of different varieties that are suitable to your part of Kenya, whether it's very low rainfall, high rainfall, in between. All the different. Now in Laikipia, I've had experience of strip grazing ordinary Burma roads, the old Burma roads that Kenya's had for, I don't know, 40 years or longer. It's not a great, very nutritious grass. But I have, by strip grazing this method on Burma roads, the right timing of course is essential. We have gained, with Baran steers, we've gained 1 kilo a day on Burma roads. So when you get a more nutritious fodder, which is available now, and more protein and so on, you can expect to get more by the same grazing methods. So actually, with the right management, there's not much difference between feedlot and improved grazing.
Just as a follow-up, Giles, you had indicated that the cost of putting up this kind of grazing is way cheaper, and the only thing that is involved is the electric wire and the solar panel. How much does it cost if, for instance, someone wants to put up this kind of grazing?
Yeah, very important. It's actually not a big capital outlay. So, especially for smallholders with 300-400 acres maybe, you will not need much more than one panel with its energizer, 50,000 volt, the two come together. The polywire it's called, which the line, the wire is literally 5,000 volt for 500 meters. So on a small farm, you don't need very many. You might spend, and then you've got to have a few pegs and things on the way, you might not spend much more over 100,000 volt to set up this system for 200 animals, more, 300 animals. And it can do more. It can do 1,000 animals. That same system, costing you 100,000. Now South America has found it and experienced it as a better animal to utilize their grasses than what they had before. And they are able to produce beef in a cheaper matter on the same piece of land. That's what the Baran is all about, and we're extremely fortunate to have it in our country here.
Thanks. The closing remarks, Richard. What is the key take-home from this conversation?
That we have a huge unexploited potential in the greatest part of the country is Assam, and through land management systems we can improve the productivity of those lands to match any productivity anywhere in this world, and more importantly is to address the needs of our people living there and contribution to the economic development of the country.
Judge, maybe you can give us your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I mean, what we're hoping people will learn about this is that we work towards producing more beef in Kenya. We're very short of beef in this country. We need to up the game, and especially as the doctor said, in the northeastern area, which is our biggest cattle area. It's not that we don't have the available country or anything, it's purely management, and I hope this is a start towards improving that side of things, and we see more beef, better quality beef produced in Kenya.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richard and Giles, for this interesting conversation. We would like to donate 5 minutes of ours to the participant in addition to their 10 minutes. Over to Wangechi.
Thank you very much, Wario. I think I would want to open it up for anyone who would have a question to ask the panelists. If there's any question, let me just pick the questions quite fast so that we only have 5 minutes.
My name is David Odwor Olote, and I would like to know the variety of sorghum and the shoulders there, so that we can now grow it. Of course, the sorghum we have, you only have it once and it's gone, but here it seems to grow again and again and again. So I would like to know the variety of the sorghum. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I even hand it over to someone else to ask you a question, maybe I would ask you, livestock contribution to this country is 42% of the agricultural GDP. Yeah? But the pastoralists and the Asa community have 63% of poverty rates. Where is this wealth going to? Yet you're saying we're producing so much from the Asa region.
Deliberately, I also feel quite encouraged when I see the young people creating interest here, because this is the future of this country, and the issues we are discussing here, they are the people to run with them. And actually, it's not far-fetched and it's not unfounded. Other parts of the world who have done what we are talking about here, they are reaping huge benefits in terms of running with the livestock and livestock businesses. So I will encourage any young and emerging entrepreneur to explore the possibility of, there are so many nuggets in the livestock space that anyone can hook into. But toward the end of the value chain, that's where many people are trying to rush. But there's this huge part of the production side where not many young people are going there. And I deliberately want to see young men trying actually to do what is doing in a small way, what I'm doing in a small way. I would wish to see young men and women going there to start rearing these goats, start rearing this poultry. This, at least a cow, I know these young men and women, they want money very quickly, they have no patience. But at least a goat or a poultry can give that money, and the demand is there. You just need to say you have 20 goats, and before the end of the day, the goats are gone. So explore the possibility of spending your time and energy, this time you are strong, on growing an entrepreneur program around livestock systems. There are so many of them, but where there is big margin is on the primary production levels. The high end of it, there is a bit of congestion there, but down there, there is huge space for everybody. The other one is, and a very interesting and good question, is 42% of the GDP is contributed by livestock, yet in the livestock producing areas, it has the highest poverty levels, for sure. And that poverty levels are being contributed by the same issues we're discussing here. That the land over time has been misused, mismanaged for a very long time, or not to be hard on the users of the land. They have lacked guidance, actually not a better one. They have lacked guidance on how to use this land in a better way. And that's why it reinforces the usual narrative of we need deliberate investment in these areas so that we can realize their full potential. That targeted and deliberate investment is so key so that we start reversing these negative trends so that people who are living in poverty, in actual sense they should not be. It's only that the support systems to enable them to have a positive trajectory of growth have been quite minimal, and that's why they find themselves in that state. I want to leave the sort of variety to my friend to deal with it.
The gentleman asked which photo have we illustrated on my slide here. This is actually sweet sorghum. And the thing with sweet sorghum, if you graze it at the right time, you can come back to it several times, and the actual plant will last about 18 months. But in that 18 months, you can probably graze it 5 or 6 times. That's how productive it is. But after 18 months, you'll have to replace it, this particular sorghum. That's one advantage of it. It's not cut and start again. It'll last about 18 months. Does that? I hope that's answered your question.
I think we will have a lot of time tomorrow, and so I encourage all of them to also come into tomorrow for any other masterclass. And I think maybe it would be important.
I'm being reminded there's one question from our lady from West Margaret. We never dealt with it.
Please.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Please let me do it.
Please.
Yeah, capacity building. What are we doing? Capacity building is a big and an essential intervention if we have to unlock all these potentials, where we have to be deliberate on it. We have to go and build capacity to our farmers, to our pastorists in all these areas, so that we guide them the right way on how to optimize all the potentials of their lands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, let's clap for this team from Gatsby Africa. Thank you very much. I don't know whether you want to share any information of anyone who would want to reach you. That would be important. An email, website, that would help. Mario?
Thank you very much, Wangechi. The way we work at Gatsby Africa, we work with government and businesses, and we follow opportunities. But we don't support like individual activities. We can support individual activities as long as it's built on enterprise. And therefore, our delivery model is a bit different. So we go and explore and take a number of initiatives, look at opportunities. Is this aligned with our strategy? If it's aligned, then we will have an engagement. That is how we work. But I think if you want to learn more about Gatsby, you can go to our website and you will get a lot of information on the website.
Thank you very much. That was a question from the gentleman. Please stand. That's why I asked for that information. It was a question from.
My name is Francis Kirago. I'm a new feedlot farmer. And therefore, when he started talking about grazing and fattening, I was a bit confused because I had come to listen about financing which he seems to be alluding to, but nobody has talked about it unless you talked about it yesterday. You know, you have talked about what you do, but different from what he presented. Would you like to say something about financing businesses?
Yes,
in particular.
Wangechi, if you allow me?
Yes.
Yeah, please. I would really like to talk about financing, and especially financing for these similar efforts we are involved in here. Financing in the livestock investments, in the livestock enterprises, and a feedlot becomes a priority area where resources could be targeted in terms of financing. I will make reference, or I will refer you to a government program called DRIVE. DRIVE is the risking, inclusion and value enhancement of pastoral communities. They have two components in that project. They have a component of ensuring the animals to protect them against the effects of drought, and they have a component of injecting capital support to livestock enterprises related to livestock and pastoralism. So it's a government project, so you have every opportunity to go and engage with the people who are running with it. It's being implemented by the KDC, Kenya Development Corporation, so you can approach them to do that. But that is on a smaller scale. Globally now, the financing in the livestock space has never been favorable to many of the financiers. And these are some of the myths we want to demystify as we engage in these forums. Because it has been regarded as a high-risk investment area, so many of the financiers have been shying away from putting serious credit lines in here. But we are trying to educate them also. They also need capacity building to inform them that if this is done the right way, these people should be able to pay it back. And through the capacity building aspects, we are able to address that, both from the person who needs the support, and to the person who wants to provide the support, but he or she is quite shy because of the perceived high investment in risks.
Thank you very much. I think we continue to learn. I hope you have learned something from today's or from the presentation and since morning. It's now my pleasure to thank you people, but also introduce the next session. I'll call upon my colleague Ibrahim Karanja to come forward so that he can introduce the next masterclass.
A warm round of applause for the panelists who just concluded that discussion. We keep learning every day. Wangechi has this time and again. And I think it is evident here at the 4th edition of the Kenya Meat Expo that you can never get enough of learning. And ladies and gentlemen, we now get to our last panel discussion of the day. Remember, we indicated that we had planned 7 masterclasses for this particular expo. We have done a couple of masterclasses so far, and we are getting into the last one for the day before we converge back tomorrow. For the last part of our masterclass today, it's going to be facilitated again by Gatsby Africa. And I want to introduce on stage a panel. The last panel, as always, let's ask questions, let's engage, let's learn, let's live here better than we came. This masterclass is about beef cattle nutrition. It's about making every bite count, and the specific topic is silage as a productivity lever in beef finishing. I first invite on stage Josephine Mugambi. She is an animal scientist and development consultant at SPAD Africa Consulting Group. Josephine brings here a wealth of experience. She is an industry leader, an expert, and the insights she will give us today, the insights she will give us this afternoon, are insights for taking home, are insights for driving value in this particular value chain. Josephine, karibu sana.
My name, you've been told, I'm Josephine Mugambi. I'm a consultant in the development sector, and by profession, I'm an animal scientist. I'm trained in animal science, animal production at bachelor's at Egerton and my postgraduate again in University of Nairobi. I focus mainly on beef nutrition, dairy, livestock nutrition generally, fodder systems, and other farmer-centric solutions that ensure productivity, resilience, and at the end of the day, improving economic growth in the livestock subsector. So I've worked in the livestock industry for over 20 years. I've worked with smallholder farmers, I've worked with commercial farmers in Kenya, in East Africa, in Africa, and a bit of it in Asia. I work for a company called Spad Africa Consulting, and I'm one of the co-founders and director, and I work there as a consultant. I would like to package a little, to unpack a bit on what we do. In this particular portfolio of livestock advisory, we are working with Grazing Africa to support investors in beef production, largely the secondary production. We are working with over about 15 or so partners with Grazing, and we also have our own private portfolio. So we approach our advisory work holistically. For a beef investor, we'll sit down, we look at what are your ambitions, what do you want to produce, how many cattle do you want to finish, for which markets, what are your resources in terms of land, and we take time to understand your farm, your topography, and we ask questions like, where are we going to get water? So from there now we are able to understand what package best works for this farm in terms of the secondary finishing. Is it an intensive feedlot? Is it a hybrid, or is it even an extensive system? And on that basis now we can package a fodder production plan, and with that plan now we'll work with our team. We have a team of different experts. We have engineers in irrigation, civil. We also have nutritionists in life, animal nutritionists, and we also have fodder experts, and also business, because of the business perspectives of these enterprises. So we now look at it, and therefore we work on the water solutions, we grow fodder together, and then from there we formulate the rations and we feed. So that is how we do our advisory work. And today I'm honored to actually host this masterclass on silage as a productivity lever in beef finishing. And the whole tagline from our point of view is that every bite counts. And this is true because, you know, with beef finishing, what you feed and consistently is what will determine what you'll get, or the returns from your investment. Quickly highlight what it really takes to get it right in beef finishing. So what is beef finishing here? We are talking about livestock that have been grown from a primary production system, and now we want to bring them to a secondary production system. And our main goal here is to quickly finish them. That is, have them build meat quality, fat distribution, so that you can be able to meet the market requirements. So it is a marathon. It is not a marathon, it's a sprint, because it is a small window to make sure we get correct in terms of quality of the carcass, in terms of the weight gains, and in terms of also meeting the market specifications, even in terms of fat distribution. So it's a high efficiency system, and we want to look for rapid weight gain and also meet the market specifications. And so that is why we are saying every bite counts. Why are we talking about silage? So I've provided a definition of silage, but it's basically a fermented forage. A forage that has been put under fermentation under the right conditions so that you can preserve its nutrients for feeding at a later date. So the most important thing is preserving at the right time when we have the right nutrients, and then putting it in a condition where we sustain those nutrients until the time we are feeding our livestock. So why we are talking why silage as a level 1, it's because it offers density, it has bulk, and it has nutrient density that we need for energy, and it also has very good digestible energy that the cow needs. You don't need to give the cow a lot of feed so that it can meet its nutritional needs. So it is quite efficient, and therefore when you give like this high digestible feed, which is a rough or a forage, you also avoid other complications. If you look at like cases where we have high grain finishing systems, again a feedlot, we using more grain and less of forages, then we also usually have problems of acidosis, where now the rumen environment is not conducive for the bacteria that usually ferment the silage or the forage to become, the silage. So when it's not conducive, then the acidity, the stomach will be more acid, and this bacteria will not work, and you have now digestion problems. You start having problems with intake, you start having problems with the weight gains, and a host of other issues. The other thing is that silage is actually a system, not just a feed, but it's also a system. Why? Because you get reliability. Once you make your silage, you get it right from production up to the ensiling, then it is reliable. You can go wherever you are and you have good feed. You don't have to worry, it is reliable. It is predictable because once you produce based on a given feeding plan, for example, you have this number of cattle you are feeding, you're supposed to use this amount of silage per day. So for these 100 cows, I should have this silage, and I have produced, I have stored. My farm, everything is predictable. I can even be able to plan my farm. Cost efficiency, it's quite cost efficient, and it is believed that feedlotting intensively is expensive, and yes, it can be depending on the strategy that you're using. But with the silage, if you can be able to make it well, you produce well in terms of your cost of production, you get it under maybe 5 shillings a kilo, and this is the bulk of your feed, then it's going to be cost efficient at the end of the day. But on the vice versa, if you used grain, it's quite expensive. For example, if you used a lot more on maybe the maize germ or other concentrates, more of it, it's going to be very expensive. So silage makes it a bit cheaper, not a bit, but quite cheap for the investor. Then longevity, silage can stay for many, many, many years. And we have a case of a farmer we visited in Ethiopia, and he gave us an example of when they moved into the farm, they didn't know what was in the farm, and many years later, when they were plowing, they were able to open up a silage pit that no one knew about. So what they saw cattle running because of the, that sweet smell of silage. They saw cattle running towards the pit. So when they realized that this silage has been in the pit for over 20 years, and it was still in good condition. So if you store it well, it can serve you because of that longevity. You don't need a lot of space to keep silage. You can put 1 acre in a very small piece of land. Not even if you can put 50 acres in a very small piece of land. Once you harvest, you can store in the above surface bunker, you can put under the surface bunker, you can even put it in bale, so it has all flexibility. Not all silage is equal. We have different silage from different crops, from different forages, and in beef finishing, the question we ask is, which silage are we using? So if you take silage that is, for example, maize, if you have good rain or reliable rain or irrigation, then maize is considered like the best standard because it has good energy, it has protein. If you are in the semi-arid areas, you're not so sure of irrigation and what rain reliability, then sorghum is good. It still has good, it has good nutrients in terms of energy, it has proteins, could be slightly lower than maize, but it is still very good. And as Giles has said, it is also very good for fattening. We have other forages like napier grass, and there's a lot of use of napier, especially the super napier and other varieties like John cow in the dairy sector, which have been really good with the dairy farmers. However, we have had a lot of farmers who are venturing into beef, also embracing what's happening in dairy. So you find a lot of farmers want to grow some of these forages like napier. The results can be very disappointing if you feed them to beef. Those who have I'm sure they have a story to tell. Why? Because if you take the result, if you analyze the nutritional profile of super napier and these other napier grasses, you'll find that it is very good in protein, very high protein, but very low in energy. So in beef fattening, as we said, the greatest need is energy because this animal has finished growing. So we don't need a lot of protein for growth. What we need is energy and a bit of protein just to put in meat and good fat cover in the finishing stage. So if you put a lot of, if you have this, then it will be very expensive because you have to keep topping up with more energy feed, that is concentrate. It becomes expensive, and again you will find yourself risking the problem I talked about, the acidosis problem. So we are good with the napier in dairy, it's good, it's really good. But with the beef, the sorghum, the maize, even millet would be better option. Millet is a good option, although it's again for relatively drier places where water is not available, because of course the nutritional profile could be slightly lower than the other two. Then we also have sorghum from legumes like lucerne and other legume crops. As a preservation method, silage, you can look at it as the strategy, as I mentioned, but you can also look at it just as a preservation. Maybe you have produced a lot of lucerne and you want to store it as silage. At this point, it doesn't ferment well, so you may have to add other sources of energy to be able to lower the pH if you are using the legume. So perhaps you make silage for preserving, but not necessarily as a feeding strategy. The fodder that we recommend for dairy is they have high protein, they have high rumen degradable proteins. While in the beef, we actually want more energy, less of protein, and we also want more rumen and degradable protein because you want this protein to be converted quickly into muscles and fat. I wanted to highlight some of the great considerations that you have to make so that you can get it right. And it all starts from the farm. So at the farm level, you have to get the right species. And I just explained, looking at your conditions, your production conditions, you can choose whether you want to do maize, whether you want to do sorghum. And then species. We have, like, for example, in maize, you have maize that has more biomass, maize that can be able to maybe to do double crops, and we have maybe maize that is very good for the for the grain. So it is good to get advice so that you can buy the right variety, because what you want, the more the biomass, the material that you can harvest, the better in terms of the yield. Then soil health, we advise test your soil because soil fertility will determine the yields that you get. If your crop is stunted or doesn't produce to its potential, then economically you're going to be losing. Then good timing of all your operations, including when you're harvesting, when you are baling, and all that. So you have to be very considerate of your timing. Watering, of course, if you are doing irrigation or if you're a place that the rain is not reliable, you must have water, especially if you're growing sensitive crops like maize. Sometimes the rain can disappear when the maize is just about to pollinate. and then you realize you have very small crops. Some don't have crops, some have got very few grains inside, some have got, the stalks have not grown well, and what that happens is that the quality is already compromised, because it's in the cob that we get the grain, and the grain is what carries the starch, which actually is the energy that will be used by the cow. So we have to be very considerate in terms of providing water so that we don't have these challenges. When we harvest, it's also important. If you harvest too early, then you're going to get very high nutritional profile from your silage, but you will not get in terms of the biomass. Then again, if you wait for too long, you might get silage that is not digestible. Some of the nutrients may have been lost in the process of overseeing in the farm. We've done quite a number of lab analysis after a farmer has delayed even by 2 weeks, and you realize that that silage has lost a lot of energy, and sometimes now the farmer has to top up with perhaps other energy sources. Then you also look at the chopping length when you're cutting, because the chopping length will determine, when you come to compacting, when you use the right chopping length, like 1.5 to 2 centimeters, then that one can easily be compacted, and also the surface area for fermentation is increased.
Personally, I've learned a lot about silage, and I think that applies to the audience here. We will take questions later. For now, we will get right into the panel discussion. Please have a seat. Josephine Mugambi will be amongst our panelists for this panel discussion that will take maximum 25 minutes, and we will take questions. But Josephine will not be alone. She will be joined by an investor in this particular industry. This is Mr. Michael Muriuki from Gatiko Beef. Michael Muriuki, karibu sana. Let's appreciate him as he makes his way to the podium. They'll also be joined by Tito TV, who is a senior manager at Gatsby Africa. Tito, tafadhali, karibu sana. Makofi kwake. Remember, sit, follow, ask questions. Any question that you want to ask about this particular topic, feel free, feel easy. Let's have a conversation. I'll start with my very, very first question, and that goes to you, Tito. You are an economist, and you know the cost of implication of quality feeds to cost of feeding per day and to profits and loss. Do you want to speak about that to the audience here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Currently, I think we all know how the economy is faring, and I think we all are aware of trends in costs, etc. I think from the partners that we work with, or from the businesses that we work with, we see pressure points that try to cut the margins that they make from two sides. From input side, costs are going up, and also from the output side, quite a bit of inelasticity in terms of the price that can be charged or offtake price that can be obtained. And therefore, pricing or cost management is critical. I think, as Josephine has said, if one is able to produce as much of their own feed as possible, then they are able to reduce some of that cost. So in the case of silage, for example, by doing own production, there are two big costs that one reduces on. The first one is transportation costs. If you're buying silage, depending on where your farm is, or where your production is, and where the silage is being produced, then there'll be quite a big transportation cost. And from our analysis, that could even end up being 30 to 50% of the final cost of silage when it lands in your premises. The second big cost that one eradicates if they do their own production is that you do not then need to do wrapping and baling of the silage. As Josephine has said, you'd be able to then put it in a bunker, and that cost of wrapping and baling. So just as an example, cost of producing fodder up until it's chopped, or rather silage up until it's chopped, might be about 6 shillings. 6 shillings per kg. Once you add the cost of wrapping and baling, that cost doubles. So wrapping, baling again is a very big cost driver. So ultimately, we've seen with some of our partners, whereas if you were to buy silage, you would maybe get it for about 18 to 20 shillings per kg. On production lowers that by 2/3 to 6 to 7 shillings.
All right, so I'm starting with specific questions, the three of you, before I get to general questions and later invite our audience to ask us questions. And Muriuki, you are an investor. You've been in this sector for a while now, and there are people down here, those following us on socials, who may want to start a feedlot about feeds, and they would want to hear from an investor. What advice would you give them?
Okay, thank you. My name is Muriuki. I come from Kibia, Nanyuki, where we have our feedlot, Gatiko farm, where we do about 200 animals in just 2 acres. When you want to start a feedlot, you need to have a good advice from the right person. I am happy that Madam Josephine, the photo you have put here for those animals, I think they are from my farm. Yes, with my permission. She did it. So that farm is about 2 acres with everything, including the stores, the offices, and everything. So it's done there. But the farm, which is about 30 acres, is just about 2 kilometers from where our farm is. So I have been able to train so many people. I can say up to now we have trained about 230, something like that. And all these people who have been coming there for training, I'm very happy that 5 of them have started their feedlot. And I remember that young gentleman from one university, I can't remember the name, but yes, he's there. What I'm training people now to do is to have a small feedlot that they can even do 5 animals only, not going for 200 like Muriuki, or the way Mr. Jao said that you can have about 1,000 animals. You can start with just 5. We have been here, we have been working with people. We have been working with people that say that in order to make margin, you must do 1,000 animals. You need to do, but we are making our own margin. We have been in that industry. We have done it very simple. You have seen it. We buy posts from ile miti tu ya kawaida. I hope utanikubali. Kisuku na hiyo.
Endelea tu, iko sawa sawa.
Watu ya biashara ya ng'ombe na kisuku hatuelewani sana. So tunafanya ile simple, kazi ile ya rahisi, so that pesa yako ya kununua ng'ombe na kulima chakula isipotelee kwa mjengo. So you might be very frustrated. Utajikuta kuwa hutaki hiyo kazi ya feedlot, utaanza kusema ni kali, ni ngumu, ni nini. So I'm very happy that wakati tulianza hii kitu, I learned to do the hard way. Nikaenda, nikanunua ng'ombe, nikaleta in the first place, nilinunua jao ambayo ilikuwa ya about 1 year. So hiyo ng'ombe hata kukaa kwangu after 100 days, 90 to 100 days, haikuwa imeongeza kilo ile nilikuwa natarajia, about 150 kilos. So ile makosa ingine kubwa zaidi nilifanya, na sijui kama Madam Josephine amewaambia, my friend, kama huna chakula, kama huna silage, umefunika, achana na hiyo biashara. Kama utaenda kununua, utalia. Nilikuwa nauziwa naambiwa, sasa tumekuuzia mzuri, ugeta kilo at about 20 shillings, lakini when I produce kwangu inakuja shilingi 4, shilingi 5, kitu kama hiyo. Na tena I have the quality. So unakuwa na ile weight gain ile unatarajia kwa haraka sana. So kwa ile mtu anataka kuanza hiyo kitu, tunaweza anza hata na ng'ombe 5. Mmoja wao ameanza na ng'ombe 3 ambao ni group za mama yake za ng'ombe za maziwa ameweka hapo na zimeanza kuongeza. Unfortunately kuna vitu vingine ambayo inakuwa gumu kiasi, kwa sababu unatakiwa kuwa na ile mezani ile weight scale ukijua inaongeza namna gani. I hope nimejibu swali lako.
Umejibu swali langu, and you brought a very interesting point that if you do not have your own silage, then utaumia, and that speaks to the cost of feed, Josephine. Yet here we are, farmers would want to have their own silage and would wonder, are there laboratory services for testing to ensure that what they're having is what is recommended, what they're having is quality? So please speak to the availability of laboratory services to support farmers in testing, and how easy it is to find or to get interpretation of lab results.
We have labs. Some are owned by government, others by the private sector. We have like Karanja, I'm sure they have a lab. The universities that teach agriculture, they have labs. We also have some emerging private sector labs. However, they are not accessible. They are not even known. That is one, they are not accessible. Number 2, the turnaround time, it can take a while before you get your results. The lab that we use, we get 5 to 7 days. So if a farmer has just brought animals and he wants now to, or he has silage he wants to test and start using, it means that you take 1 day to collect the samples and maybe courier to the lab. Then those 7 days of analysis, and then now getting the results and now using the results. So you see that period the farmer will have lost a bit of time, and again the animals are still feeding in his countdown of his 90 days. The other thing about the lab is that the results that come out, you get more proximate results in terms of the composition. You'll get to know how much energy, how much protein, how much digestibility and all that, but you may not be able to understand the fermentation dynamics, whether the compaction was good, whether in terms of the oxygen and all that. You'll not be able to get those dynamics from. I've not seen them in our lab. So it means you can use the results to formulate the seeds, but you may not really learn whether you did well in terms of the fermentation process.
Well, the things you're speaking about here, the specific questions you've asked, speak to one thing, because I'm asking about laboratory and availability, asking about what a farmer needs to do. All this speaks to the quality of silage. This is a general question to the three of you. What does quality silage actually mean for beef production? Let's start with you, Tito.
Quality silage means one, I think, as Josephine had said, energy, some good source of energy. It's quite, I'm not a technical person, I should say, but just from the few years or months in this sector, it's quite holistic. So it has both the bulk in terms of fiber, but also giving the quality. So it's one of the more kind of balanced feeds, and then the price point can be made very good to enable the commercial viability of the secondary production.
Commercial viability, keyword, commercial viability. Muriuki, quality silage. You are actually living this, you are practicing this. What does it mean for production?
Good weight gain. Inaongeza kilo haraka vile mwanabiashara anataka. Ukiwa na hiyo. Wale watu tunadeal nao kwa ekipi ya ndugu zangu na dada zangu ambao tunadeal na wao na bwana Jaws. Walisema tujaribu hii lugha, so sijui tutafanya aje. Unajua sina kwa kurudi kama tutaongea hiyo ya Tito yote, so sijui vile tutafanya. So ukiwa na ile good silage with good quality, it will give you a good weight gain. I have been a victim of a bad silage, a bad quality silage, and it took us 2 weeks kujua shida ni nini. Ilibidi sasa nipigie Madam Josephine nimuulize, by the way she is a consultant kwa upande wa chakula, nikamuuliza hii shida ni nini. Tukamwambia vile yote tunafanya, akasema chota hiyo weka, Unfortunately, tulisema serikali iko na hizo labs, tukapeleka kwa serikali ikapotea, so another week goes, so tukapeleka kwa private sector. We were told, tuliashiria hiyo ika overgrow. Sasa wakati ili overgrow, it lost the ingredients, ile kitu ilikuwa inatakiwa ikuwe kwake. So kama sasa, na mimi nasema kwa niaba yangu na wale wakulima wengine wako hapa na wale wanataka, kama tunaweza kuwa na access ya hiyo kitu ya RAB karibu na sisi, you can test what you have. Sisi zote tunasemaga hii nyasi ni mzuri, kata weka kwa ng'ombe. Sasa you don't know what it contains, but if take it to the laboratory, you can know how many kilos do you need. Madam Josephine can tell you with these ingredients you need 2 kilos per cow per day or something like that.
Well, Josephine, what does it mean? The same question to you, to have quality silage for production.
Okay, I guess it's the same, but from a different point of view. If you look at it from the farm, the forage itself, it's also a quality parameter. You plant maize and then you get very small cobs, or you get cobs which don't have grains. That means that cob does not have starch. It doesn't have energy. So again, that is now quality from a nutrient point of view. The other quality parameter is digestibility. You might have a silage, but as Mr. Muriuki says, it has already overgrown. So when the animal eats, it does not extract any value from that silage. The other quality parameter is about the safety. You know, if fermentation didn't happen, and maybe you had even or bad bacteria or fungus growing, and then you're going to feed the cattle, then it will find itself either in the food chain, or it will even affect your livestock. The other quality again is from the performance point of view. Again, it is the silage that does not upset the stomach because of the way it was chopping and of course ensiling process and fermentation process. So that is around the quality.
Still maintaining it with you, there are a couple of farmers who I know who have corn silage. We have indicated here through your presentation that corn silage is actually gold. That is the word you used, the best. Yet with this corn silage, where one can achieve up to, is it a kg of weight gain a day? Close to a kg, or perhaps over a kg of weight gain a day. 1.5 kg weight gain a day. These farmers whom I know still are achieving a very low quality or very low weight gain, up to 0.5 to 0.7 grams. Is it that we are not doing it right? What is it that needs to be done to get it right? Or are we silaging wrong? Just to paraphrase that question.
We can only tell if we can understand the nutritional profile of that silage. That's why we are saying, farmers, you could say you have silage, but you could be having something which does not meet the nutritional value. Like in Mr. Muriuki's silage, the energy was so low. So he was feeding a lot, but the animals were not gaining. But earlier, he had another silage which was doing well. So the whole thing is now the way it was made. Then the other factor is, in beef finishing, we are looking at energy. So when you do the profile, you may want to boost the energy with maybe some little grain here so that you can be able to achieve those high weight gains. So there's still a bit of total mixed rationing there that can help you to up the energy and protein.
Tito, as an economist, let's widen this discussion. And we know there is need for supplements in this production. However, I've seen reports indicate that quality silage would actually lower needs for production. Like an economist, give us a proper picture of what this would mean. A farmer, say, who already, how many heads do you have right now?
I'm putting in about 80 by Sunday, and then the other hand will come back later.
So Tito, for a farmer like Muriuki, who has about 80 heads, quality silage, and then the supplements that they would have required if they didn't have quality silage, like an economist, what does this mean for them?
So I think the thing to note is that as a country, most of the supplements that we get come actually from our neighboring countries. So the question maybe you're asking is there a displacement that will arise from quality maize silage? If there is a displacement, I believe it would be a good one, because most of that maize silage is homegrown, in fact would be grown by the farmer themselves, and would therefore reduce even the cost that they incur for the other supplements. Not that they would be totally removed. I'm sure the nutritionists will tell us that there'll still be a need for some of those supplements, either to add energy or to add protein, but the proportion in the food, in the formulation of the feed may be lower, which saves cost, and again, to a large extent would be home produced, so better for the economy.
Let's hear from the farmer here. Your own experience. Now that you met an expert, she guided you on how to, handle silage and all that. Imekusave cost kiasi gani in terms of the supplements you would have gotten for your livestock?
Kusema ukweli is more than 60%, kwa sababu when ukiproduce chakula yako wewe mwenyewe, you know the quality ile una produce, unaweza sema hii quality iko size hii, and when you have it ikiwa yako, you determine na haina shida. So when you produce yours, you don't need to go and buy other supplements a lot. Perhaps there are some what do you call it, the protein that sometimes we had a challenge. Lakini sasa tumeingia maneno ya Rusan, and it is doing the magic that the thing what we were buying from the shop is replaced by Rusan. So inatusaidia over 60 to 70% the saving.
Okay.
So the profit is high, very high, when you produce your own things.
60 to 70% saving on production costs. Yes. That is impressive, isn't it? Yeah, I think it really is. And Josephine, before I go to the audience and see whether anyone has a question, you mentioned here about the longevity of silage. That is something also cited in very many research documents. However, with this longevity, when silage is properly made, we still have seasonal shortages. We are still told here that we are not meeting the demand for the beef that we require. So, is it that I have silage as a farmer? Is it that I'm saving for tomorrow while starving today? Or what exactly would inform the fact that there is longevity in silage, yet we are having seasonal shortage?
It now goes to feed planning, because as a farmer, you know how many your production plan in a year. You'll be having 3 cycles or this number of cattle you'll have to finish. So it boils down now into planning. How much silage do I need for this year? And then, of course, things can go south. You need to have your reservoir in case something happens and you're not able to produce. So your bunker, you need to have a bunker which is a reserve, and we need to produce what you need for that particular year. So it's about feed planning. Number 2 is to have the right silage or the right forage. I wanted to highlight this because there are times when farmers, they become ambitious, or they want even to make a sort of meat ration in the bunker. So they get, like for example, I have one farmer I know who did sunflower, then sorghum in a bunker, which is okay. Mixing is not the problem, but if you look at the silage itself, the time it was harvested, and now including sunflower, which was already overgrown with the seeds, again it is limited. How much can you feed the cow because of the oil? Because the fat, of course, there's a limit to which you can give the animal. So that silage now, you have it, but you can't use as much as you'd want to use, unless now you combine it with maybe maize or sorghum, so that you can be able to dilute the oil effect. So have the right silage plant and have your your reserves just in case.
I have another question for you, and this is from a layman's perspective. I know you made a presentation here, but many would think, what is a conducive environment for proper silage? You know, he does it in Laikipia. There's someone who would want to do it in a completely different environment, different temperatures, different, let me just say a different environment. So are there specifications for silage? So that we are able to know with the audience here that if I come from a place like Nyandarua, these are my chances of having quality silage as compared to someone who comes from Wajir or Laikipia. So are there specifications?
Yes, each agroecological zone has got its own requirements in terms of water, in terms of temperatures. Crops which can do in Nyandarua well may not do well at the coast. So again, we'll select varieties that will suit different agroecological zones, but you can never miss. We have actually planned silage for farmers in Wajir. It's about now, how can they get water so that they can be able to sustain? There's a lot of, it rains, there's a lot of flooding. Then we work around setting up a water fund, and therefore we grow a crop that can be able to still survive under those, the hot conditions, but with irrigation. So there are ways, there's technology to work around different ecological ecological zones, and so it is good to consult that before. Yeah.
All right. I'll take this to the audience, and we'll ask someone from the DJ booth to help me with the microphone, because we have several people who want to ask questions. Please help me with moving the microphone around. Goko, Asante Sana. I see a couple of hands, 3 people who want to contribute. It can be a question, it can be a comment, just to enrich this conversation that we're having about silage.
My name is Philip Bono, I'm in the finance sector. It's quite evident from this discussion that the fodder, the feed, is a sex factor to feed lots. But looking at the forage fodder or that was discussed, maize seems to be like the star crop. But you see, in this part of Africa, the maize competes with the human. Like now, a bag is 4,500 of maize. I mean, maybe that in America, South America, they don't feed on maize as we do. My question is, in some parts in the sugar belt of this country, parts of Nyanza, Western Kenya, and parts of the Rift Valley, the sugar belt, we have this sugar cane. There's a lot of biomass that is left by the farmers, the trash, the sugar cane tops, the trash. It's a waste that is huge biomass. Farmers burn them because to do the farms, it's quite inconveniencing as well. Can it be used for silage?
First of all, in terms of competition, I don't think in Kenya we have utilized all the land that we have. We have a lot of unused land in the country. If you go to some place like, I visited Pakistan, you'll find that everywhere they have cultivated. You think it's one person's farm. It's all cultivated. But then what they do is that they use the byproducts of these grains to feed, so there's no competition. But in our country, I don't think we have even utilized much of our land. Number 2, in terms of the sugarcane, yes, you can. It may be having a lot of water because of course, the juiciness of the water, but there's always a way of going around it during the processing of the silage, but it can be used. Even in maize, we use even the stovers. Mr. Muriuki, I'm sure he's using his stovers, the dry ones, because you use it now to provide the fiber. So even the sugarcane, whatever is burnt, can still be used in feeding. It's just that we need to understand, we take some analysis, we see what's the profile, and then we see how to incorporate with other ingredients, and you have a very good feed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Josephine. Let's have a second question.
The silage process only specifically for beef cattle, or can it be borrowed to some extent for goat rearing, for beef, for meat, that is? Because I'm kind of wondering if it has to be custom made for each. Because there's for dairy, there's for beef, and then now there's goat, because I'm more of a goat farmer than cow.
David Odwar, Ruben, from Siaya, and I'm not attached to any organization or NGOs. I'm just on my own. I just came here on my own. I came here because I want to start feedlots. So I wanted to get ideas from experts. I have a question on silage. When you compare with dairy farming, you have specific amount you give to dairy farmers, which is in line with milk production capacity. Do you have such arrangement with beef farming? How much? I want figures now. Figures, not just to give silage. No, I want figures. If you give this amount, you wait to get this. That's what I want. And then the next question is dry matter. That is the hay itself. Yeah, nobody has talked about the hay itself. Because there are people here who want to know the role of hay in feedlots. What is the role you compare that with the role of things like napier grass, to cut, napier grass, green grass, the wet forage. What is dry forage? Yeah, in the feedlot.
What is your experience from your farm? Are you limited to beef?
Okay, I do beef, but I also have goats, and with that they do very well in it. But I'm not a lot in that department of food, so I cannot say a lot about it. Perhaps.
Have you tried silage on them?
Yes, they are doing well, but they are just for when friends come, we sit down, we eat, so they are not commercial.
Give me a date, I want to come. Anyway, Josephine.
Yeah, silage is just a forage that has been preserved, and so any ruminant can eat silage because it is forage. The only difference is the quantities, and again the production objectives. Then how much in figures? At the finishing stage, you do between 2 to 2.5% of animal's body weight dry matter. So if you have an animal whose live weight is, let's say, 300 kilos, then you do 2 to 2.5% of that animal body weight of 300 kilos, and then on dry matter basis. So if your silage is 30 to 35% dry matter, then you'll be able to compute backwards how many kilos of silage will give you that dry matter content. I hope I've answered you. Then wet. You see, when you're giving wet forage, much of it is water. You're giving the cow a lot of water, but we want the cow to take in dry matter. That is why we'd rather give the silage instead of giving the green forages. So, but you find that in dairy, you find that farmers will use, the green forages. But most of the commercial farms, you see, they have to give silage, they give hay. But now, just for to keep the cattle busy, they might give some grains, but a bit, just a little. In terms of overlooked feedlot designs, I want to have a very different perspective on design, where, for instance, you have enough land, you have good pieces, maybe you have 50, 100 acres or even above, the production system that Giles was describing, and the pastures are good, so the animal is able to get much of its nutritional bulk of its feed from grazing, but we know the pastures are not going to provide all the nutrients. So you prepare a total mixed ration with silage and other supplements, and you just have the traps within the grazing area, those strips. In Giles production system, you have some traps there, and maybe at certain times of the day you have the cattle come, they eat the supplements, that is silage plus other supplements, to top up what they got in the field. So that is also a feedlot, but it's a very unique and maybe rarely used system. Then in terms of design considerations, maybe Mr. Muriuki can give from his practical point of view. Of course, the space, you have to consider the space of the number of animals. The space should be able to fit the number of animals that you're keeping. Of course, the number goes with the weight. So if you know you're going to have big bulls, they require more space. You have to consider the space. You have to consider the water, the height of the water traps. You have to consider also the walking areas. You also have to look at, maybe I can tie it to the disease control one. You also need to also look at your quarantine areas. You also have to have areas where you can be able to spray. And so there are quite a number of considerations from both the feeding, the comfort of the cow when it is feeding, the comfort of the cow when it is resting, and also restraining the animal when you are doing certain operations. Yeah. Then I think I've addressed the one of disease control. Biosecurity is key. You need to have an area when you bring your cows, which is a bit off, of course, considering the direction of the wind, where you keep the animals to observe them before you mix with the rest of the herd. And the herd that you're already in the feedlot, you also have to use very strict biosecurity practices to prevent diseases into the farm. Thank you.
Thank you. We are coming towards the close of this particular discussion, and I have a general question that goes to all of you, and I want to start with you, Tito. When you have these experienced experts, this wonderful innovation, and I'm thinking about the part of the country that gives us, the most of our livestock, the ASAL regions, 80% landmass, and livestock in that particular area, or in the ASAL regions actually, are a source of livelihoods for, this is data, more than 90% of the people there. When are we going to connect now, have a nexus between what we have in terms of our expertise and what we have in terms of brilliant innovation to getting to the ground, getting to the most interior part, so that by the time we sit here next year, or in 2 years, or in 5 years, we'll say we have now surpassed the demand locally, and we've actually gone beyond in exporting. We're no longer scratching the surface outside. How do we need to close this gap?
Thank you. It's going to be gradual. I think one starting point will be a general commercialization of animal production in the ASAL areas, such that it moves from not only being cultural and a social aspect of the way of living in those areas, but also has a big commercial component. And the maximization of or optimization of profitability and household incomes would be a big driver towards getting it right. But also technological diffusion happens slowly. So we now have a few of us here and more others out there practicing these innovations in their farms. And I believe there will be a cascading effect through demonstration where one sees the opportunity, not only sees the innovation, but sees the opportunity to make money and adopts it where they are. So it will be gradual, certainly not an overnight thing, but I think once we get commercial incentive right and that technology diffusion, I think we will start progressing.
Muriuki, your thoughts on the same? I know you are a farmer in Laikipia, but You must be having this bigger thought of how can my fellow farmers in far-flung areas benefit from the expertise which you have benefited from? Just a thought.
Well, kitu ya feedlot is doable, is practical, inawezekana. Hii kati ya wale watu nimefundisha wamekuja huko kusoma shule. Mmoja ameifanya mahali inaitwa Kuramawe in Ethiopia, which is dry. Na kwa hiyo mahali one of the things sahi ameweka ng'ombe 3 and he is happy about it. Sasa nilikuwa nakuja hapa, tumekutana na wazee wa Laikipia, Muriuki marketing, livestock marketing. Unajua wakati tunasema Muriuki, we all know that Muriuki means remote route. So that is where the word came from. So wamesema walikuwa kwangu wakasoma na wanataka kurudi tena, na wameanza kujenga boma za ng'ombe. Na hawa ni ile wazee wa pande hiyo ya wale wazee ndugu zangu wa Masai ambao wao wanajua ng'ombe haifukiwi, inakula kila mahali. So tuko na hiyo ambao wanasoma na wanaelewa na wanajaribu na wanaona sasa hakuna njia nyingine ya kufanya hii biashara, kwa sababu storage ndio muhimu. Hii nchi inanyesha kama mwaka moja ama miaka 2, inaukauka miaka obviously or something like that. So storage ya chakula ndio muhimu sana, kwa sababu most of the time hatuna hiyo chakula. Nimeenda for the last 2 months, nimeenda soko ya Garissa. The animals were very expensive. They were more expensive than Muriuki. I went to Wajir. The animals were so few and they were very expensive. I went to Mayare this week on Monday, na nikashika kijana moja ambaye kazi yake ni kuandika ng'ombe. Ukinunua ng'ombe yako kama ni yako, unasema iandikwe NDV, na andikwa hapa kwa mgongo, inasukumwa kwa ile boma. Kaniambia sasa, mzee, unakuja wakati ng'ombe zimekuwa kali, ng'ombe zote zimeuzwa Ethiopia. So I don't know ni nini iko Ethiopia ambayo ng'ombe inaelekea huko. So kwa watu ya serikali pengine ndio wanaweza kutusaidia. Ile kitu ningetaka kusema, kuna watu wengi sana wanataka kusoma. Kuna mathematics, pengine Tito watatuambia. Ile unasomesha watu 100, watu 50 wanasikiliza, watu 30 wanasema wataenda kufanya. Ni wangapi wanafanyaga? Ni wawili. I don't know that mathematics. So wakifanya hawa, wengine wanarudi tena wanafanya. So if we can have every area moja akubali, it is so good. Yeah, the other issue is wakati tunafanya hii ukulima. Kama mimi niko na kina mama from informal sector, ile mahali ya ambao wanakuchanga na wapatia kazi wakati wa kupalilia na wakati wa kukata hiyo kitu. So I create job to women, and also I have 2 PW2 those guys wawili ambao but wanafanya hiyo kazi nyingine yote. So feedlot, it creates job and it has all that, na masomo mingi kwa watu wengi.
Asante sana Josephine.
Thank you. First of all, Kenya is one country that is very unique. One time it rains and we get news all over. There are floods all over and a lot of destruction by the floods. The next time you hear there's so much drought, the animals are dying. What I've learned is that there's so much potential. We just need greater investment in the sector, starting with the county government and the national government, all the development partners and those who are supporting the government. It is important we invest in water. We can have water, we can have earth dams. We don't have to go, drilling boreholes all over. Sometimes even they are not viable and they are also not sustainable. So the first thing is, let's see how much can we harness runoff so that you can open these areas for production. The second one is also to have models that can allow the scaling up. We have now, Gatsby is supporting the investors, individual investors. But these individual investors and now they are also attracting now the community members who also want to get there. So we should look for models that allow this the community. For example, can we have community-based, livestock finishing schemes? Can we even have youth? We have, as South Africa, we have done one youth. This kibbutz, what is done in India, in Israel, the kibbutz, dairy production in India. Can we also have it in beef? And it is very viable in beef because informally you'll find that most of the pastoralists, they kind of keep their animals together, or they can even buy the graze together. So can we now improve that beyond just grazing? Can they graduate now produce fodder by getting the support from the investment? So thinking of the business models and also the community-based models, as well as greater investment, and also financing, of course, having more affordable financing for earlier investments, especially for the community and also the youth-based programs. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, because we promised to give you value through this Meat Expo, part of the value that we want to give you is to have contacts of experts, right? Gatsby Africa is an organization that will help you as a farmer in terms of even having feedlots and even professional advice. So right now, I'm going to ask each and every individual from the different organizations they are from. Muriuki, as an investor, you may want to go to his farm and learn and see what he does. You cannot do that if you do not have his contacts, right? The same applies to Josephine, a wonderful consultant. We have seen her expertise and it's something we can borrow. And the same applies to Gatsby Africa, here represented by Tito. So I will allow the three panelists to each give their contacts. Not all of us may have time. We are going sana kuzungumza nao baada ya hii. Contact yenu ama contact your organization so that by the time we leave here, this audience and the audience following us from our socials will have an extra partner to give them value in this value chain. Let's start with you, Tito.
Maybe I can give out my email address, tito.tv@gatsbyafrica.org.uk.
That man is an economist. He can help us in that particular front.
For now is an email, that is gatiko@company@gmail.com.
Gatiko, G-A-T-I-K-O.
Yes.
And company.
At the company.
So the email address, the and is which and? Gatiko and. Okay.
But I have the business company.
Okay, you can get his business cards as well.
Yes. Plus the contact.
Gatiko and company
@gmail.com.
@gmail.com. And finally, Josephine, your contacts as well as the consulting group that you represent, or whichever you feel easy to share.
Okay, I'll give you my email address, and those who want my number, I can give you later. My email is Josephine, JOSEPHINE @spadafrica.com. Spad Africa is SPARD Africa, small letters, .com. Yeah, I can share my number to those who are interested after the meeting. Thank you.
Remember, we have a deal making room in case you want to strike a deal with any organization, any person. It is open for you. Right behind this podium, there is another door. So just in case you want to make a deal from this particular expo, to strike a deal, it's very convenient, very cozy, and you can speak business from that particular point. So ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate our panelists. Muriuki, closing comments.
Sorry, you didn't ask our challenges.
The challenges. Why I didn't ask about challenges is because we were running out of time. However, I'll give you a minute to quickly run through your challenges.
We, the cattle aggregators, when we go to the market, we don't get what they call e-teams, either KRI. So tunakuwaga na shida sana. Hiyo ndio shida yangu. Asante.
Muhimu sana, hiyo si point ilifaa kubaki. E-teams. I think policy makers, government, wako hapa wanasikia. Ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate our panelists today. Thank you very much, Michael Muriuki, investor from Gatiko Beef. Let's also appreciate Tito TB, an economist from Gatsby Africa, and also Josephine Mugambi, a consultant who facilitated this particular session. We are coming to the close of day 2 of the 4th edition of the Kenya Meat Expo. Are we getting value out of it? That gentleman who wanted to give a comment, please make it brief.
My name is Paul Obaka, I'm from Migori County. Now, my only request that I wanted to put across to the organizers is that a lot of valuable information has been passed on here. We wanted to ask if there is somewhere we could access them on the platform. We should have all of them because we may not have had the opportunity to be present in all the sessions. But the quality of information that has been given out is huge. So if we could have a repository where we could access all of them so that we have a synergy of all the information that has been presented here. We find it very convenient if that would be able to us on the platform. I know the young men can quickly collect that information, the contacts of the consultants who are here, so that we have them for future use.
And by the time we come to a close, we will make arrangements for a depository like he has requested for all the information here, because there's a lot of value indeed, from the speeches at the opening to the masterclasses that we've had. A lot of value that you are getting. Remember, the conversation, it continues across all the social media platforms. The hashtag is the Kenya Meat Expo 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. My name is Ibrahim Karanja, alongside Wangechi Muriuki, Jose Trends, and Brian Aseli. It has been an honor to host you here. Asante sana.